Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our hadith class. We are doing the kitab known as Riyaadhus Saaliheen. Riyaadhus Saaliheen of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. And last week we had just entered into a chapter, even though we did not do any ahadith from it, and that is the chapter with regards to Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. And all we basically did was read the ayat which Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah had quoted. So tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we are starting from the ahadith. So without delay, let us begin. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we're starting وأما الأحاديث as far as the ahadith are concerned. فالأول hadith number 185. Very famous hadith. عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. رواه مسلم. Hazrat Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that he heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi. That whoever sees an evil being committed, then let him change it with his hand. I'm going to read the hadith and then we can go through some explanation. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. If he cannot do so, then then he should do so with his tongue. Meaning, if he cannot do so by hand, then let him do so verbally. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. And if he cannot do so verbally, then let him do so with his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. And that is the weakest form of iman. This hadith is reported by Imam Muslim rahimahullah. Now, it's a very deep hadith and a lot deeper than a lot of people tend to give it credit for, to use that term. The ulama have given a great deal of explanation on this hadith because of how much depth it has. But obviously, we don't have that amount of time, or we'll spend the entire night just on this one hadith. But in any case, so in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that if you are seeing an evil taking place, then change it with your hand. Now, changing it with your hand means physically, by force, sort of things over here, things that would fall into that category. Therefore, if, for example, you seeing let's say you are walking in the street and you see somebody beating up a Muslim woman over there, for example, then it is your duty to change it with your hand by force. Now, some people, they're like, there's like 10 of them and only one of me, and I'm not going to go and die. You know, that type of people. So I'm not going to die for somebody else. So he feels I cannot do so with my hand. So, fabilisani. Then in that case, you tell him, hey, stop what you're doing. But then some people will be like, if I make a statement like that, they're going to turn on me anyway. So then, he shies away. He rubs his face up against the wall and looks in the opposite direction and passes by. But then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Fabi qalbi." Then at the very least, he should hate it in his heart. And that is the lowest form of iman. The words Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam uses is not random. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying that this year, when you only are hating the evil in your heart, it is the lowest form of iman. It's not people tend to say, it's like there's 3 levels. They're not 3 levels. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying that if you do this, your iman is on the lowest level that can be. And the next hadith will also put things in a bit more perspective for you. But nonetheless, if this is the lowest, then in other words, there is nothing lower than it. So you can understand the case when a person passes by a LGBT pride march taking place and he doesn't do anything about it. He doesn't speak against them. He doesn't even feel anything wrong in his heart. This person no longer has iman. That's essentially what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. That you are seeing the evil, you are not making an attempt to change it by hand. You are not making an attempt to change it or to stop it verbally. You are not even feeling distaste towards it in your heart. So therefore, that bit of that lowest form of iman, you don't have that. It's not a light, small thing, but yet for many people, it is the lightest and smallest of things. Now, like I say, the ulama have delved very deeply into this hadith. So, what does it mean seeing a munkar and changing it with your hand? Like we did last week, that there are rules and regulations with regards to amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. The same applies here as well. So, if, for example, it is a person's parent or some elderly person. Maybe you come along and the ustad in the madrasa is busy beating a child over there. Now, here you jump in and you punch the ustad. This is not what is being referred to. Now you come and you're a child, you're visiting your friend, and you see maybe his parent is like come in and sway him, grab him, pull him by the ear, and slap him around. Now, and you're like, "What is this? You don't have the right to do this," and things, and then you get slapped instead. But you get that sort of thing. So it's not, a person should not get the wrong idea of things and think that it means for all and sundry, everybody just jump, go out there and do what you want to. No. Furthermore, even in an Islamic state, it is primarily the duty of the Khilafah to ensure that the hudud are being carried out. So it is not for you, you see a man stealing, you go and you grab him, then you chop his hand off. It doesn't work that way. There's due process that needs to be followed. He will come and be arrested, taken to the Islamic court. He'll be found guilty, then he'll be sentenced to have his hand cut off. If, for example, he was a a person in extreme poverty, he was stealing just an apple to eat, or a loaf of bread, for example, to eat, to give it in more modern terminology. So he just grabbed something like that because of being in abject poverty. In this case here, his hand would not be cut off. So with everything, there are rules and laws, and the normal man in the street don't always know the nuances and the intricacies of the Sharia. So it's not for the layman to just take the law into his own hands and feel, hey, let me do this. Even when it comes, for example, to a person becoming a murtad. In the Sharia, if a person becomes a murtad, they are arrested, put in jail, and they are given 3 days wherein they are to repent. So, for example, the person will be told, you recant from for having become now a Christian and return to Islam. And he's like, no, I refuse. I've accepted the blood of Jesus, for example. Then you say, okay, fine. Day two, day three, if he's adamant on it, you take him outside, you lighten his burden, you take a load off his shoulders, and you leave him there in the dust. But that's how it would work. So there is a process behind things. It's not just a matter of running out and doing something. But nonetheless, so with everything, there are rules and regulations. So, like I said, if it's an elderly person, a senior person, a person in a position of power, there are ways to changing things. So, changing things by hand does not mean you see every problem like a nail and all you are is just one big hammer. It doesn't work that way. So, there are, for example, you see somebody, maybe for example, you come along and you see a man like bobbing along to some music he's listening to on his earphones. Now you come and you tear the earphones out of his ears, and you break the cable and smash his thing on the floor. I changed it with my hand. No, you're not. According to the Sharia, you still have to recompense him for the earphones and for let's say, his Walkman. Youngsters today don't even know what a Walkman is, but let's call it your MP3 player then. So you have to replace his MP3 player and the earphones. And if you hurt him in the process as well, then he can take you to the court, and you will still have to, be taken to task for that too. So in a case like this, yeah, you see him bobbing along, and then you speak to him, like, if obviously the dance is doing, maybe he's listening to some Jerusalema, like everybody was busy doing the dance back in the COVID period. But nonetheless, so you get, okay, he must be listening to this. It's something haram is listening to. Then you approach him and you speak to him. That would be changing it with your hand too. So changing it by hand means physically putting yourself out there to change it. So by speaking to him, that is also changing it by hand. Why? Because now you spoke to him, you got him to stop. There's a principle in the Sharia that harm is deterred using the amount of force required. So, like I say, you don't take a sledgehammer out for a mosquito. So in simple terms, if speaking to him stops him, then you speak to him to stop him. You don't smack him to get him to stop. And that's how it goes. So in a situation where you speak to him and he refuses to listen, for example, so you've done that, then فَبِلِسَانِهِ. You say, but we just did فَبِلِسَانِهِ now. No, you actually did بِيَدِهِ in the case of you speaking to him. Then فَبِلِسَانِهِ, you speak about like how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would many times say, what is wrong with some people? They do such and such a thing. The Sahabi who did a particular action, he would have been present. And obviously, he takes heed of it and everybody else as well. So now, for example, let's say it is an elderly person once again. Now, because you cannot come up and speak to them directly and say, what is, you're so old, you're 2 feet in the grave, and here you are still bobbing to music in the street. So what you do, he comes to the masjid for Jumu'ah, so you make the Jumu'ah lecture on the evils of music, for example. Or if it's somebody, maybe he's in a particular WhatsApp group or Facebook group and things the way social media is today, then you take a post and you post about the evils of music. For example, that is fabilisani, putting it in a modern context that we can understand today. So that would be biyadihi, by speaking to him, bilisanihi, by making a post that he can see without directing it directly at him, and biqalbihi, if you say, hey, this man, he's one of those knuckleheads, he's not going to listen to anybody or anything. And what is more is that if I tell him something, it will lead to more evil, like we did the principle last week. So by me telling him to stop, he will do it more, or he will go and commit kufr, or hit somebody or cause some harm to people like this, then in that case, by not telling him, the least you do is you hate that in your heart, and that is biqalbihi. But when you reach the point that you don't even do this much, then you are on a very serious problem, because then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That is the lowest form of iman. Like I said, today people take it as a very light statement. Everybody read it. Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, and so on and so forth. You hear the hadith 110 times, and it never really sinks in the depth of the words that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. But in any case, that's the first hadith. Imam Muslim rahimahullah is the narrator of that hadith. Let's move on to the next one, hadith number 186. الثاني عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما من نبي بعثه الله في أمة قبلي إلا كان له من أمته حواريون. Okay, the second hadith is reported by Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, who said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that there was no Nabi that Allah had sent to an ummah before me, إلا كان له من أمته حواريون وأصحاب, but that Allah placed within his ummah companions and hawaris. Now, what is a hawari? A hawari means a pious, uprighteous person that aids the Nabi. That's what the term hawari actually is. So Allah placed amongst them hawariyun and ashab. So companions, those who will go around with him, and hawaris, those who will aid him in everything. So both of them are companions, but one is a ashab, the ashab, companions, part of things. He can be not pious, but he's part and parcel of your ummah. Let's put it that way. So he can be unpious, non-pious at least, or impious. What am I saying? Impious is the correct word. He can be impious, or he can be everything, but he holds back, different things of the sort. But hawari is specific. It means that this person is pure, clean, 100%, and he helps you with everything. So the Anbiya had hawaris and they had ashab. يَأْخُذُونَ بِسُنَّتِهِ وَيَقْتَدُونَ بِأَمْرِهِ. So these people from the previous ummas, they would follow his sunnah, and the Anbiya had their own sunan. With the sunan of the Anbiya, there was a sunnah for a specific for a Nabi himself, and then there was the practice of the Nabi, which became the practice of, as we would say, his sharia. So his sunnah here is another way of saying his sharia. وَيَقْتَدُونَ بِأَمْرِهِ, and they follow his commands. ثُمَّ إِنَّهُمْ تَخْلُفُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خُلُوفٌ. So In other words, those Anbiya. Now, this would be, for example, Anbiya such as Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam. Anbiya such as this. They are those Anbiya who will come and will have no, not a single Ummati who follow them, one Ummati who follow them. You have those Anbiya too. But generally, the general way it went is as Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying here, that they were Anbiya and they had followers who were pious and good and things of the sort. And then ثم إنها تخلف من بعدهم خلوف. And then what came after them? They came successors. يقولون ما لا يفعلون. They would speak that which they don't do. Now, khuluf, just one point on this from a linguistic perspective with regards to the word khuluf. What is khuluf? Khuluf is another word for khalf. Khalf, not khalaf. There's a difference between khalf and khalaf. Open a dictionary and you'll probably tell you it's the same thing. But there's a small difference which make a big difference at the end of the day. One is a sakin, one is a fatha. But the difference between them are poles apart. So, khalaf is a good word. Khalf is a bad word. And Allah uses the word khalf twice in the Quran. فَخَلَفَ مِن بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ. When Allah speaks about one group of evil people, what happened? They came after them. Khalf, أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ. They came a group of successors. Like the word khalaf, like we know. So they came a group who came after them. أضاعوا الصلاة. They, like they neglected their salah. وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ. They followed their desires. So Allah uses the word khalf, refers to this. In another ayah, Allah says, after من بعدهم خلف ورثوا الكتاب يأخذون عرض هذا الأدنى ويقولون سيغفر لنا. With regards to the Jews, that's the ayah from Surah Al-A'raf, wherein Allah speaks about the Jews, and they came and they persisting in sin and they say Allah will forgive us. We can continue. In other words, we can drink from morning to night, to give an example of a sin, and Allah will forgive us. And there was no such command, no such promise given to them, but they lied against Allah and they said Allah will just forgive us. So khalf, two ayat of the Quran where Allah uses the word khalf. So the difference between khalaf and khalf is that khalaf is the one who succeeds you with goodness. So you have the salaf, and then you've got the khalaf. The salaf of this ummah, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, tabi'in, atba'u tabi'in. They were the salaf. Then came after them the imma, for example, the muhaddithin, the fuqaha throughout the ages. These ones, people who follow them in goodness and the right path, they are the khalaf. When you have people who come in the later generations and they go against everything of the former, they like the example given in there, they أضاعوا الصلاة واتبعوا الشهوات. Salah was ordained, but these ones came and they abandoned Salah, they followed their desires, they do whatever they want to. The commands are there, they are not following it, things of the sort. They are known as a khalf. So here the same thing is being mentioned. Then after these pious people of this ummah came along khuluf. Khuluf is simply the plural form. يقولون ما لا يفعلون. They speak that which they don't do. So, it's like, you must do this, you must do that. In other words, they don't practice what they preach, or they preach what they don't practice. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا لَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. And what they do is that which they have not been commanded with. So they do what they are not commanded. In other words, they innovate things into their deen. So, like the Christians came, وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا مَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ. As Allah says in the Quran, the Christians, they innovated, being monks and stuff. مَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ. Allah did not ordain becoming a monk upon them, but they innovated it. They made it up themselves. So, they say what they don't do. And they follow things which they were not commanded to do. For example, people today, every bid'ah, you were not commanded to have 3 days, 40 days, 100 days, and things like this here, and all sorts of special Eid milads and Eid this and Eid that and all things of the sort. So you innovate things, that which you were not commanded. So what you are commanded, you don't do. What you are not commanded, you do. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made mention, فَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِيَدِهِ فَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. Whoever fought against them by his hand, then he is a mu'min. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِقَلْبِهِ فَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. Whoever strove against them, fought them, jihad. They're using the word jihad in the Shari'i sense, which is to fight, and not the linguistic term that people have turned the Shari'i definition into, which is to strive. You know, so whoever fought against them by hand, then he is a mu'min. Whoever fought against them with his heart, then he is a mu'min. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِلِسَانِهِ فَهُوَ مُؤْمِن. And whoever waged jihad against them with his tongue, then he is a mu'min. And then, and this is a word which this part of the sentence, which I said would put things in more perspective for you. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, وَلَيْسَ وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ حَبَّةُ خَرْدَلٍ. And after this, meaning بيده بلسانه بقلبه, and after that وليس وراء ذلك, beyond this point, وليس وراء ذلك من الإيمان حبة خردل. A حبة خردل means a mustard seed. We would say today an atom's worth. So in other words, if you don't let's put it this way, stop the evil physically, you don't speak out against the evil, you don't hate the evil in your heart, then you don't have a mustard seed's worth of iman, or as we would say today, you don't have an atom's worth of iman in your heart. That's what the hadith is actually telling us. Now, once again, فَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِيَدِهِ فَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. You are required to stop it with your hand, then you are a mu'min. Your stopping it is a sign of your iman. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِقَلْبِهِ فَهُوَ مُؤْمِن. So you, obviously, you're not exactly taking your heart out and bashing them over the head with your heart. We're talking here, you are unable to do it by your tongue, you're unable to do it by your hand. So the least you have it. So this hadith is the same thing with different words. So you are detesting what they are doing in your heart. Then فَهُوَ مُؤْمِن. Then you are a mu'min. Sure, it may be أضعف الإيمان, but you are a mu'min nonetheless. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَهُمْ بِلِسَانِهِ. And you strive against them with your speech, then you are a mu'min. So once again, what it tells a person, you read a hadith and you wonder where this whole don't judge brigade came from. What? Okay, don't judge me is a belief of Christianity. It was never part of Islam. But unfortunately, today people have more Christianity in them than Islam. So they take this filth wherever they pick it up and they try and make it part and parcel of Islam. So you have people like, don't judge others, don't find fault with others, because, for example, somebody came and say, like, this is haram or this is evil or this, yeah, and then like, why are you always judging people? You're not even mentioning anybody by name, but you're speaking out against a certain practice, and then people like, it's not our job to judge. It's our duty Islamically. You are not a mu'min if you don't judge. You are not a mu'min if you don't judge. Judging, we judge by the apparent. This is the command that the Sharia has given us. We are required to judge. And if you don't judge, you have no iman. People can take it as they want to, but the deen is the deen and it's never going to change for anybody, regardless of whether they like it or lump it. And this is the reality. If you are not going to be physically out there stopping evil, and you are not going to be using your tongue to the best of your capability, like I say, if you are able to speak to people and stop them, so be it. Alhamdulillah, well and good. Otherwise, if you have, like today, everybody's got social media. People have no problem putting up what they had for supper and cat videos and Nutella, Nutella eclairs and everything. People don't have an issue putting all of that up and recipes and I saw this one here and I went to this movie. People don't have an issue sharing it with the whole world, but they have a problem sharing the tenets of the deen with others. It's unfortunate how far people have strayed from what we are supposed to be doing, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, after this, after not having stopped it by hand, not having spoken out against it, and not having at least detested it in your heart, then you cannot say you have iman because you don't even have an atom's worth. Imam Muslim rahimahullah once again is the narrator of this hadith as well. So like I say, we live in a world today where maybe let's put it this way, put it in a different context. You live in Saudi, or at least I should say you live in the Jaziratul Arab, which the Kafir Saudis have named after their un-Islamic family. But any case, so if you are there, you're supposed to be actually declaring jihad, waging jihad against them, but for some reason you are not. Then that's number one gone. Then you speak out. But like many of them know, if they open their mouth once, they will be whisked away, put in jail, tortured to death, and things like this. You'll get at least a 10-year, 15-year jail sentence. So in both cases, they can't do something physically, they are not going to be speaking out against it, then the bare minimum is hating it in your heart. If you can post online, by all means, but of course, if you feel they're going to follow your IP address and trace you to your house and then whisk you away at night, then so be it. But anyhow, if you are part and parcel that now, yes, they're having Christmas celebrations, they're having Halloween things all over the place like this year, concerts everywhere and things, and you don't have a problem with it. Your iman is missing, and this unfortunately is where the madkhalis and those type of their ilk show their lack of iman, because Twitter and these type of places today puts the people in this sort of situation, and people say, this is the Jaziratul Arab, the land of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and widespread evil like this is taking place. And people are like, worry about your own things. Why are you only worrying about what happens over here? Like every other country also does it. It's not only Saudi. You don't have, you are not physically stopping it. You are not speaking about it, and you're trying still to justify it. It's like that mustard seed. That mustard seed is long time missing. But nonetheless, long story short, at the end of the day, it is a requirement of the deen that we stop evil. There is a saying in English, it says, it is sufficient of a crime, or it is enough for evil to flourish if good men do nothing, sit back and do nothing. Words to that effect. I'm sure if you were to just Google it, you'll come across the quote. But if you do nothing, evil flourishes. Even kuffar know this because it's an English saying. And the deen has put things in place to prevent such things. But we don't want it. We want evil to flourish. We want love and let love and, let everybody just do what they want to. But that's not what the deen of Islam is about. We are a whole society, not just islands in and of our own selves. So we live with others, and we are required to uh, do what is necessary for the protection of the entire Islamic and Muslim society. Nonetheless, our time has elapsed. I know I've taken up too much of your time on just two hadith, and more of it was on things which were unrelated to the hadith. But anyway, nonetheless, we're ending at this point for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Until next time, we end and we say, وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.